Hello, everyone, and inside today's Locked On Canadiens, we're analyzing the fallout from the Sean Monahan trade and who's rising and who's falling in the first half of the season.
You are Locked On Canadiens, your daily podcast on the Montreal Canadiens, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the latest episode of Locked On Canadiens, your daily Montreal Canadiens podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where you get your team every day of the week, wherever you get your daily podcast, whether that be Google, Apple, Spotify, or if you are watching on youtube.com in video as well. I am one of your hosts, and today's episode is brought to you by Sleeper. Download the Sleeper app and use code Locked On NHL to get up to $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. See Sleeper's terms of use for details today. Pretty good episode lined up for y'all today. Not that all of them aren't good, but we are a few days post Sean Monahan. Sean Monahan was traded early, Friday afternoon-ish. I want to say, let's call it mid-morning, in the middle of the NHL All-Star break in that regard. And for those who haven't watched the emergency episode I did, it's about 20 minutes long. It's up on all of our feeds and everything right now. Just trying to make some semblance of where the team was at exactly at that point right then and there. Where were the Montreal Canadiens at after trading Sean Monahan? The answer was pretty clear. They were down to two NHL centers. That's, unfortunately, unless your centers are like Sidney Crosby and Connor McDavid, you cannot play two centers and hope to win games at the NHL level. Not that I am expecting the Canadiens to win games in the back half of the season here. So the first news is that they recalled Lucas Condotta on Sunday morning here. That was the first news of the day. That was kind of expected. He was the one they had just recalled before the NHL All-Star break kicked in, which it's fine. He's going to be your fourth line kind of center guy with Pizzetta and whomever else is down there right now. And I had to remember is that they have two extra spots now. With Monahan still on the roster and Gallagher suspended, they only needed, I think, one body at the time. Now with Monahan gone, they needed two. And you might be asking yourself, well, Scott, Lucas Condotta is not two people. And I go, correct. Lucas Condotta is not two people at that point. And what the Montreal Canadiens did was the long rumored, and this dates back to, I think, even parts of last year and earlier this year, they turned Brandon Gignac's the second year of his AHL deal. He signed a 2-year deal last year after that really deep playoff run the Rocket had. He signed a 2-year AHL deal. They upgraded that to an NHL deal today, as of Sunday morning right now. 2 years, 2 ways. So he is through the end of this season on an NHL deal, through the end of the 23-24 season, and they embedded an extension into that. So his NHL deal carries into 24-25 as well, which ensures he is part of this organization for at least another year. Contract, I'm reading this from Renaud Lavoie. So, and I'm trying to translate this out of French. $775 prorated for the rest of this season, $150,000 in the AHL, $775,000 for next season at the NHL, $350,000 in the AHL, potentially up to $400,000. He got paid on an AHL deal. And for those who aren't familiar with Brandon Gignac, one, you follow me on Twitter for all of your AHL needs. Let me put things to you this way, is that in 43 games for the Laval Rocket this year, he has 42 points, 14 goals, 28 assists, 36 penalty minutes somehow, 3 power play goals, 2 shorthanded goals, 102 shots on goal, 1 shootout goal for him there. He's sitting, let's see, Stankoven's 51, 2, 3, 4. He is tied for 5th in all AHL scoring. Some of the guys ahead of him are on much more loaded teams. Texas, the Stars have the 2 top scoring players in the league in Maverick Bourque and Logan Stankoven. Mark Jankowski for Milwaukee was on, I believe, like a 12-game winning streak, which is insane. Mike Scarbosa playing for the Hershey Bears, one of the top teams in the AHL this year. And then he's tied with Georgi Merkulov of the Providence Bruins. For a guy who's never really been the leading scorer on any teams, like I'm looking at his career stats here. Played 2 games for the Albany Devils, 0 points, 21 games for the Binghamton Devils, 2 goals, 1 assist, 66 games for the Devils, 36 points, 36 games, 14 points, 2 games for the Devils, 0 points. And then he joined the Laval Rocket, 26 points in 48 games, 33 and 49 last year, and now up to 42 and 43 this year. He mentioned that between AHL reassignments and everything, he's glad that Jean-Francois Houle saw something in him there to bring him into the fold and make him felt like he belonged there. And he was the guy who bounced around. He's been on the 4th line. He's been on the top line. If you're wondering what to expect from Brandon Gignac, he's one of the fastest players I've ever seen in my entire life. And I'm not entirely sure how he does it because he's very unassuming. You're not expecting it to happen. And then the next thing you know, he's 3 strides ahead on the next player there. He is such a lethal threat from standing still to in motion that defenses have no choice but to respect that. He can be in the neutral zone waiting for a breakout pass at a standstill, get it, and still beat a defender around the corner there. He has played wing. He has played center. I'm assuming they are bringing him up to this level to be a center because they only have, like I said, 2 other NHL centers. Lucas Condotta, bless him, I don't have enough of a sample size to decide if he's even an NHL player or not. So I look at Brandon Gignac as a guy who, and this is a very lofty bit of praise that I can offer, and I am not saying they're going to turn out the same way. I look at someone like Paul Byron, who was a specialist kind of player that kind of wasted away in the AHL for years, kept going on waivers, getting sent down, and was eventually claimed on waivers and became a 20-goal scorer for the Montreal Canadiens twice. Penalty killing specialist, one of the just most unassuming, fastest guys you've ever seen at all. Gignac, one, fits the stature profile. He's not an overly big guy. He's not. But he is quick. He is very good defensively because his speed allows him to close gaps. And if there's a loose puck and he is able to poke check that puck away, you are going to be watching Gignac taking that puck and then just taking off. You can search through my Twitter account for any kind of highlights that he's done. This year, he's been a pretty good goal scorer, and he scored a lot of really nice goals. He scored a goal against the Toronto Marlies the year the Rocket went to the Eastern Conference Finals in one of the last games of the year as part of a huge comeback in which he is skating around someone, goes to deke, loses the puck, and it bounces, and he swings his stick like a golf club and chip shots it over the Marlies goaltender. It's one of the most ridiculous goals I've ever seen. He always shows up when it counts. They played Friday night against Rochester. He put up a 3-point performance in that game. He scored another goal on Saturday against Rochester. He's done everything you could ask of him to even be considered for this. I think that they like his work ethic. He's been a heart and soul guy. Gabriel Bourque is the team captain, but Brandon Gignac has been one of those guys who is just a crucial piece. This is why they gave him that multi-year deal here. I'm excited to see what he can do at the NHL level because he doesn't have a ton of NHL experience in that. He had his entry-level deal with the Devils that he mostly spent in the AHL, and they let him go. And he's been on AHL contracts with the Rockets since then. I love this in that this is going to be a team that is going to struggle a little bit. And coming up in our next segment, we're going to talk a little bit more. I know that in the show notes, we're going to get into 3 up and 3 down later on. But I kind of want to talk about what is this going to look like? What is the second half of the season going to look like for the Montreal Canadiens now? And kind of what we can expect. And we're going to get into that and more coming up next. And as I said off the top of the show, today's show is brought to you by the fine folks at Sleeper. It is just past the halfway point, Habs fans. And we know The team's right in that rebuilding window still, and there's still a lot of hockey to play, so you never know what's going to happen. But regardless of where this team stands in the current standings, I want to remind you that you could win big playing daily fantasy hockey on Sleeper, the official daily fantasy app of the Locked On NHL Network. And Sleeper is our number one choice for daily fantasy sports, and especially hockey, because with Sleeper, you can win 100 times your cash in daily fantasy hockey contests. League starting up soon. We're going to see the Habs coming back from break. We're going to see Cole Caulfield continue to dominate. Is Slavkovsky going to take that next step? Is Jake Evans going to be the next guy to maybe sneak some points as the Canadian second line center? And if hockey's not your thing and you want to, play fantasy, something else, there's the NFL, there's the NBA, there's baseball, there's college football, there's a little bit of everything. All you have to do is pick whether or not a few of the star players in this league, like McDavid, Ovechkin, Crosby, etc., will record more or less in their sleeper projections for things like goals, assists, saves, and plus minus in a given game. And to win 100 times your bet on Sleeper, you need to correctly predict the outcome of 8-player stats. That's it, 100 times your money for playing daily fantasy hockey. So use promo code LOCKEDONNHL and you'll get a $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. That's code LOCKEDONNHL. See Sleeper's terms of use for details and locational availability. We are back here at Locked On Canadiens. I'm going to slide our 3 up and 3 down, our risers and fallers, into one big final segment for everyone there, because there is a lot to cover in that. And people are going to look at this now and go, so the Montreal Canadiens, Christian Dvorak is out for the year. Kirby Dach is out for the year. Sean Monahan is frozen in Winnipeg for the rest of the year. You have 2 NHL centers on the roster right now. They are Jake Evans and they are Nick Suzuki. I love and adore Jake Evans. Jake Evans is a perfectly cromulent bottom 6 center. I think he has some more offensive upside than he's been able to show there, and I think that's great. I do not think Jake Evans is a second-line center as of right now. And behind him, you have any mix of Lucas Condotta and Brandon Gignac. That in and of itself should be sending up every kind of signal flare that you can get as a Montreal Canadiens fan. The back half of this season is going to be quite painful. And I think a lot of folks kind of expected that. I haven't actually looked at Tankathon to see where we ended going into this. They are sitting 7th in the draft order right now, with Minnesota and Ottawa right in front of them. And I haven't looked at the NHL standings totally here, but I believe, honestly, that they're not that far off. Let's see here. Down at the bottom, Minnesota has 47 points. The Canadiens have 48. And Ottawa has 42 points with 2 games in hand. And Columbus is kind of in that range as well. The Canadiens are in a pretty good spot to kind of, I don't want to say pull the plug on their season, but to kind of pull the plug on their season here a little bit. In my first segment, didn't make that very clear. I am extremely happy for Brandon Gignac. I cannot wait to see him suit up for the Canadiens this year and to showcase some of that speed and talent that's made him a point-per-game player for the Montreal Canadiens. But you look at this and go, are they really going to just run 2 NHL centers and 2 AHL centers for the entire season? And the answer to that is probably not. Based on Kent Hughes' press conference, Alex Newhook is expected back relatively soon. The sound you hear is that Alex Newhook at center is not even a choice. It is a necessity at this point. They need someone else who can be an NHL center, because you're going to have they're loaded on the wings. They have NHL wingers for days, even down into the AHL. They have NHL quality wingers for days. The hardest part is giving them a center who can effectively fill that role. Lucas Condotta on the 4th line is fine. Potentially. Small sample. We'll see where he's at after this. Brandon Gignac is the mystery box. He could come in and be Paul Byron, and that would be great. If he were to be a guy that chips in, let's say, a half dozen goals, and that's a very lofty expectation for this team in the second half of the season here, that's phenomenal. You can't rely on Owen Beck coming in. He's got the Memorial Cup with Saginaw now, and there's not really another center who I think could step in right now. Vincenz Rohrs is in Switzerland, doesn't have an entry-level contract yet. Machar, still playing in Kitchener, and they're looking to make a deep run, could potentially fill that role. And if you look at the AHL, it's Mitchell Stevens. It was Brandon Gignac. It was Lucas Condotta. You're running low on centers a little bit now. So Newhook at center is going to be a thing that happens. I think the biggest thing is that I think Newhook can be a perfectly decent center. I do not think you can put Josh Anderson on his line. I think Newhook needs a guy like Raphael Harvey-Pinard and someone else who can play with pace on his wings to make things happen. And yes, Anderson is a very pacey guy, but he's a straight line. He has no deception to his game. A Jesse Yolin in there. Even Yoel Armia, who isn't the fleetest of foot, but does well retaining the puck, I think isn't a bad option to kind of fill into that role there. And I think at that point, then you can either send Condotta or Gignac back down through waivers to the AHL and have your forward depth there. It's not going to be pretty. And I think that's the point I want to stress is the second half of this season is going to be, rest in peace, Captain Holt, pain. There's going to be pain that goes along with this. The Canadiens are a team that are somehow punching above their weight, but are still directly where they should be in the standings right now. They are 1 point off of being in the top 6 for picks and very close to potentially ending up in that top 5 spot there, which, is good. You want another top 5 pick in this organization because you're getting the Jets pick as well. Everyone here should be rooting for the downfall of the Winnipeg Jets in the second half of the season. Connor Hellebuck can't save a puck. The coward Mark Scheifele can't play anymore. You're not only rooting for losses from your team, but other teams now as well, like we did with the Panthers last year before they made the Stanley Cup final, of course. The thing is that you want to see that continued growth in players there. You want to see Suzuki, Caulfield, Slafkovsky continue that chemistry that they created earlier this season. You want to see Yoel Armia kind of continue his resurgence a little bit. You want to see if Raphael Harvey-Pinard can get back into that form he was in last year down the stretch. That team was bad, and he still scored double-digit goals. You want to see that again. Can Brendan Gallagher come back from his suspension, 5 games worth of it, and figure out and get back to his goal-scoring ways? You don't have Sean Monahan anymore, and you're going to be asking Jake Evans to be your center on a lot of these power plays in crucial situations now. You're hoping that Newhook comes back from his injury, keeps that speed and that forechecking ability he had before he got hurt. Because I thought Alex Newhook was playing pretty darn well before he got hurt, because of course he did. That's how this team operates. I don't know what the trade deadline is going to hold now. We're, I think, a month away from that at this point. The biggest trade chip the Habs had is gone now. Sean Monahan being gone opens the door now for other teams to try and figure out what they're going to do. I know Kent Hughes said, I'm not actively shopping David Savard, but I think that is more a tell that he's open to that. It just, no one's made an offer that he likes yet. I'm curious to see what this team looks like in the deadline. My bold prediction for this, and you can quote me on this, is the first NHL center that gets sent down on waivers after the All-Star break, and there may be one later on today that gets claimed on Monday, I think will absolutely be claimed by the Canadiens, just so they have that extra body there. And the thing is, if you claim him on waivers and once the team gets healthy and you want to send him down because he's not working out, and you put him on waivers and he gets claimed too, who cares? It was found money. I think that the first NHL centerman, and I say NHL, I mean bottom 6, whatever, fine, that gets put on waivers will be claimed by the Montreal Canadiens. It is mostly that they need the body, and they are trying to respect that the Laval Rocket are in a playoff chase right now. I'm assuming they would like Brandon Gignac to be with that team, but they couldn't not reward him for these efforts here. I think if they get another NHL center, you'll see Condotta sent down, and you'll have your 4.5, depending on when Newhook gets back, centers there. It's the right move. Obviously, I'm recording this at noon on Sunday, so I'm not 100% sure what waivers are going to look like yet. If there are centermen on there, you should absolutely keep your eyes peeled for the Montreal Canadiens making a claim on that. We're going to switch gears a little bit. I want to talk... I'm going to, take the third segment. I was originally going to do 3 up and 3 down as a whole. I want to talk purely about the risers in the Canadiens organization so far this year. There's a lot of them and several that are kind of going under the radar, and we're going to get into those coming up next. But first, it is almost Super Bowl weekend here in the United States, and you can celebrate with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook right now. It's always about the food. It's always about the commercials, grabbing your favorite drinks, hanging out with your favorite people, and maybe placing a couple of super bets there. How often are they going to show Taylor Swift? How many times are they going to mention, Travis Kelce beating Gronk and Brady's records? How many times are they going to point out the Bills missed a field goal and make me extremely sad there? There's so many things that you can find at FanDuel to suit your needs. And if that doesn't sound interesting, you can explore the Parlay Hub. You can explore bets and find exactly what you were looking for on an app that is safe, secure, and easy to use. And right now, if you are a new customer, you're going to get $200 in bonus bets if your first bet of $5 or more wins. Just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to sign up. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon. And remember to make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL and us here at Locked On. We are back at Locked On Canadiens, and I was going to do 3 up and 3 down here and kind of make one giant segment, but I've talked a lot about how the back half of the season is going to be painful for Canadiens fans, and I don't think a lot of people want to just sit here and think about doom and gloom for another 35 games. That's a lot. That's a lot mentally to deal with there. So I'm going to kind of, shift my own show notes because I'm hosting by myself today here. So we know who the star players have been at the AHL and the NHL level this year. Nick Suzuki has been incredible. Sean Monahan was full value for his deal before he was traded. I have nothing but respect for them. We've seen Cole Caulfield slowly rounding into form and diversifying his portfolio of how he creates offense. And I'm hoping for a big second half from him as well with a little bit of rest and recuperation there. Juraj Slafkovsky has taken huge strides forward in his game from last year. I don't see somebody who is out there playing timidly. I see someone out there who is playing with authority, is using his physical gifts to create opportunities. And I follow Leaf fans for some reason. They're like, I just don't see what fans are seeing because you didn't watch last year where it was a deer in the headlights on the ice, brief flashes, but deer in the headlights. And this year he's confident. He's in the right areas. He's utilizing his shot. He's getting into the good areas. Huge step forward. We knew that. Samuel Montembeault, definitive NHL starter. You cannot tell me otherwise at this point. I think that he is very much your entrenched starter right now, and that should not change barring injury or massive dip in form. Here in that 3-year deal, and I'm really happy to see that he has all the chance in the world to put himself in the Olympic game conversation if he can keep this upward trend going, and we will talk about the Olympics and stuff later on this week. Got plenty I want to do on that. I just need to go over, the rosters and everything that could potentially be there. Underrated at the NHL level this year, though. I originally was going to say Samuel Montembeault just because I think people kind of look at, the Habs are struggling, or they're winning games that they shouldn't be winning because Samuel Montembeault is playing so well, and that's not good for the tank and this and that. 905 save percentage. He's got 11 wins on the season. Honestly, he's 11-7-4 on the season with a 905 save percentage. And yet somehow still reeks of being underrated a little bit. It's hard for me to not be happy for him. Shifting over to the AHL. Again, I can't say enough good things about Joshua Waugh. Joshua Waugh's been incredible this year. And yeah, he's had a little bit of scoring slumps here and there, but he's so dangerous that teams after the first 2 weeks of the season are like, we got to cover him doubly now. We can't ignore Joshua Waugh anymore. And that allowed guys like Brandon Gignac to step up. And now Brandon Gignac's on an NHL contract. It's hard to not be happy about that for him. He was my underrated guy. But if I'm going to shift this just a little bit more, Jan Mysak of the Laval Rocket. Still a young guy. He is just 21 years old. He turns 22 in June. He's playing his technically third season with the Laval Rocket right now. It's up to 10 goals, 15 points on the season, which doesn't seem like a lot. He's doing this primarily in a fourth line checking role. No pun intended there. He's been noticeable in ways that I didn't notice him before. And his 10 goals tie him for, let's see, Gignac leads the team. Lias, Maye. He's tied for fifth on the team in scoring with Logan Mailloux for goals. A supremely kind of underrated player for this team. And I want to give a shout out to Xavier Simoneau. He's only got 5 goals on the season, but he's got 29 total points. He does all the little things that lead to goals being created in the offensive zone. He's someone I would really like to see get NHL minutes this season. Hedy Kalakash of Locked On NHL Prospects and Habs Eyes on the Prize, Dobber Prospects, etc. loves him. The more and more that I watch Simoneau play, the more that I want to see him get an NHL look. Shifting to the full prospect pool here. Everyone knows Lane Hudson rules. Without a doubt. In Hockey East alone, he's getting a ton of pressure from a freshman goaltender at Boston College. 69th, nice overall pick, Jacob Fowler. Jacob Fowler, I think, I already loved his attitude for all the parts in the lead up. He wants to win games. He wants to thrive on that spotlight, that he considers it a privilege to play in that spotlight. 24 games played this season, 1 shutout, 2.21 goals against, 925 save percentage, 19-4-1. And 3-0-0 at World Juniors. He's just 19 years old. He is doing, if my math is correct, he's played every single game for Boston College this year. And those aren't easy games. They played BU twice. They played teams like Northeastern. They play in a very difficult conference. And Jacob Fowler is taking that and he is going, I want to be in this spotlight. I am that dude. And you know what? I can't really argue with that. He is that dude. He is absolutely that dude. And I'm just kind of scrolling down here, looking through, this is all goal scores. I'm looking for goalie stats. He's one of the best goalies in the NCAA. He leads the league in wins. He's in the top 5 for save percentage. And in terms of all the games played, some of these guys play in like smaller areas. He's 9th by goals against. He is that guy. And yet somehow I still think he might not even be the most underrated prospect going right now. In that, no, Bogdan Kuniushkov's been very good over in the KHL. I got to thank Patrick Bexell for pointing this out to me. Philip Eriksson, 19 years old, turns 20 in November this upcoming year, was loaned from the SHL into HockeyAllsvenskan. He went to Nybro to play for the Vikings there. He's played 9 games so far. He has 12 points in those 9 games. He had 6 assists in 29 games at the SHL level. He's someone that missed time with injury last year, and I think is showing the tenacity of what the Canadiens want in like one of their middle 6 forwards. I watched his game the past week here, and he's got some speed. He's got some skill. Patrick Bexell has interviews. His coaches are so happy with the progression that he's making that he missed a lot of last year because he was hurt. So we don't fully know what he might look like overall here. This is a good step because HockeyAllsvenskan, this is not a junior league. This is the tier below the SHL. That's still a tough spot to be in as a teenager. You are playing against men. You are not playing solely against people your own age. He'd be playing in, the J20 leagues in Sweden if that was the case still, where he was putting up over a point per game in his age groups there. And now he's taken that next step up, then step down, but still playing in a men's league and putting up over a point per game so far. they're really happy with what they've seen from him. And like I said, Patrick Bexell has your highlights, has your clips, everything you're going to need for that. I highly recommend you check that out. Adam Engstrom is still Adam Engstrom. He's still great. Oliver Kapanen had 4 assists in his last game. Philip Eriksson, I think, is probably my most underrated prospect outside of North America right now. And yeah, I didn't mention Beck and Machar. Beck's been on fire in Saginaw. Machar's been great with Kitchener. We knew that. I wanted to kind of shine the light a little bit on players who maybe didn't have that same shine right now. I will be back. We're going to talk Olympic Games, or we're going to talk who we need to step up in the second half of the season, what it means for the trade deadline, and more. But that's going to wrap up this show. You can follow us on Twitter at @LO_Canadiens, LockedOnCanadiens@gmail.com for emails. You can follow myself at Scott Matla on Twitter as well. Check out Locked On Sports Today, a 24/7 stream of all of our local experts, all in one place on one YouTube channel. Remember to subscribe, tell all your friends wherever you get your daily podcast, Google, Apple, Spotify. And until next time, thanks for tuning in, and we'll see y'all then.